You think you're living your life. But the truth is, you're performing it. You think you're improving yourself, becoming more confident, more disciplined, more impressive. But if you pause for just one uncomfortable second, you might notice something disturbing. You no longer know who you are when nobody is watching. You rehearse sentences in your head before speaking. You edit messages 3 times before sending. You imagine invisible audiences reacting to your choices. This isn't self-awareness. This is internal surveillance. You think you are making decisions. But most of the time, you are managing impressions. And the most dangerous part? You have started to confuse approval with meaning. If you stop watching now, you will likely continue believing a massive subconscious lie. That this pressure is normal. That this anxiety is necessary. That this performance is your personality. In the next 20 minutes, I will take you from the neurological mechanism that makes you addicted to being perceived, to the shadow of human nature that secretly craves validation, and finally, to a precise psychological ritual that helps you reclaim authorship over your own existence. Not motivation, not positivity, but the dismantling of the invisible audience living inside your mind. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And you may realize you have never truly lived a single day only for yourself. Imagine a hidden camera following you. Morning, you stand in front of your closet. The question is not, what do I feel like wearing today? The real question is, how will this be interpreted? Too formal, too careless, too try-hard, too forgettable. You are not choosing clothes. You are editing perception. Now another scene. It's late at night. You scroll past someone your age. They launched a startup. She got into a top school. He travels constantly. She transformed her body. Your chest tightens slightly, not because you want their exact life, but because their life looks convincing. Convincing enough to silence doubt. And suddenly a strange thought appears. If nobody admires the life I'm building, is it still valuable? Are you living or curating evidence that you are living correctly? Hidden inside these small moments is a fatal logical error. An error that quietly fuels anxiety, comparison, and chronic self-monitoring. And the most unsettling part, almost nobody realizes they are operating inside this error. But once you see the structure of it, somewhere in the middle of this video, you won't be able to go back to sleep. In the 1950s, psychologists conducted a deceptively simple experiment. Participants were asked to perform an extremely boring task, moving wooden blocks repeatedly, endlessly. Afterward, they were asked to tell the next participant the task was enjoyable. Some participants were paid $20 for saying this. Others were paid only $1. The results were unsettling. Those paid $20 usually admitted the task was boring. But those paid only $1 began convincing themselves that the task was actually interesting. Why? Because the human mind cannot tolerate certain contradictions. I just lied for $1. That realization creates psychological tension. So the brain does something extraordinary. It edits reality. It adjusts beliefs to reduce discomfort. It says, I wasn't manipulated. I chose this. I like this. This is cognitive dissonance, one of the most powerful forces shaping human identity. Now apply this mechanism to your life. If you spend years optimizing yourself for approval, your mind cannot easily accept the possibility that this may not be what I truly want. Because that realization is expensive, emotionally expensive, existentially expensive. So the brain creates a story. This path is meaningful. This identity fits me. This ambition is mine. Not necessarily because it is true, but because admitting the alternative feels unbearable. Slowly, the line between self-expression and social performance dissolves. You start believing the version of yourself that receives validation, even if maintaining that version exhausts you, even if comparison never ends. And if this sounds uncomfortable already, what comes next may force you to question how much of your free will is actually negotiated with invisible observers. Carl Jung once suggested, what we fear most is not darkness itself, but discovering that part of us desires it. We say we want freedom, but often we want confirmation more, to be seen, to be recognized, to be located within a hierarchy, because being defined feels safer than being undefined. Nietzsche wrote, "He who fights with monsters should be careful lest he thereby become a monster." Today, the monsters do not live in caves. They live in metrics, numbers, likes, visibility, signals of relevance. Modern society has created an infinite hall of mirrors. Every mirror reflects how we appear to others. And eventually, we forget what we look like without reflection. Gabor Mate, in his work on addiction, makes a disturbing observation. People do not become addicted to substances. They become addicted to relief. Relief from pain, relief from emptiness, relief from uncertainty. Now consider this possibility. What if validation is a painkiller? When you feel invisible, uncertain, replaceable. One moment of recognition can soothe the fear, just enough to keep the system running. And so a loop forms. The more anxious you feel, the more you seek recognition. The more recognition you receive, the more afraid you become of losing it. Eventually, the audience becomes necessary. Not because you are shallow, but because silence becomes threatening. Because silence asks a terrifying question. If nobody is watching, who am I? This is what Jung called the shadow. The part of us that secretly longs to be envied, to be admired, to be needed. Because being irrelevant feels like psychological death. But if your sense of self depends on constant observation, who is actually directing your life, you or the imagined crowd? When you attempt to become acceptable, are you quietly abandoning what is real? I know what happens the moment someone says, "Stop caring what others think." Your mind rejects it instantly. It sounds unrealistic, almost dishonest. Humans are social beings. We are wired for belonging. So we are not going to attempt radical detachment. We are going to run an experiment, a small psychological ritual. Experiment 1. Do something intentionally unshareable. Not because it cannot be shared, but because you decide not to share it. Read a book you never mention. Practice a skill nobody will applaud. Take a walk somewhere that has no aesthetic value. Watch what happens inside you. A subtle discomfort may appear. If nobody knows, did this moment matter? That sensation is withdrawal from observation. Do not fix it, observe it. Experiment 2. In a low-risk situation, allow yourself to appear slightly unimpressive. Admit, I don't know. I need more time. I didn't prepare perfectly. Notice the physical reaction. A tightening in the chest. An urge to quickly compensate. Your internal image management system is activating, but if you stay in the moment, something unexpected happens. Nothing collapses. Nobody keeps a permanent record of your imperfection. Often, the audience exists primarily in your imagination. These experiments are not about rebellion. They are about rediscovering a rare psychological state, action without performance. Gradually, behavior becomes less about proving worth and more about experiencing existence. The anxiety does not disappear completely, but it loosens, enough for breathing room, enough for curiosity to return. Fyodor Dostoevsky once observed, humans sometimes prefer suffering over freedom, because freedom removes the script, no guaranteed approval, no clear measurement of correctness. But that uncertainty is also where life becomes personal. Aldous Huxley warned of a world where people willingly surrender depth in exchange for constant stimulation, constant evaluation, constant distraction, because depth requires solitude, and solitude removes the performance. But reality offers something unexpected. When you stop continuously monitoring yourself, time expands, attention deepens, emotions become textured again. You begin to feel something subtle but powerful. Existence does not need constant justification. Your life does not need to look convincing. It does not need to be optimized for perception. Perhaps maturity is not becoming impressive. Perhaps maturity is tolerating the discomfort of being undefined. You are not a brand, not a portfolio, not a permanent project. You are a changing organism. And change rarely looks good from the outside. Maybe the real question is not, what do people think of you? But if there were no observers, no metrics, no possibility of being evaluated, would you still choose the life you are building? Or is there a quieter version of you, waiting behind the performance? Share in the comments the moment you first realized you were living inside other people's expectations. Sometimes awakening begins with something very small, a single uncomfortable realization, a brief moment of honesty, and one final thought. The moment you stop proving you exist is the moment you finally begin to exist.